In May 2007, Mayawati was sworn in as the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh for a fourth time. They were not 4 consecutive terms, with the intervening 12 years having seen much political drama and upsets, with the mantle passing between the BSP, the BJP and the SP. In her fourth term in office, Mayawati's BSP was no longer the minority party that it had been in her first term in 1995, when the party under Mayawati had just 67 seats in the assembly and needed the BJP to back her up with their substantial 177. The voters of Uttar Pradesh in 2007 gave the Bahujan Samaj Party a massive mandate. Under Mayawati's leadership, the party jumped from 67 seats to 206, and Mayawati became the undisputed queen of all she surveyed in India's most populous state. Queen of all she may well have been, but even in her first term, Mayawati did not achieve the distinction of being the first woman Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh. She was the first Dalit, but only the second woman to have become Chief Minister of UP. 32 years before Mayawati, the Congress party had elected a woman Chief Minister in Uttar Pradesh. Not just UP, it was a first in the country, because no woman had till then headed a state or central government in India. In 1963, the first woman to take the Chief Minister's oath was freedom fighter and founder of Mahila Congress, Sucheta Kripalani. She had been a contemporary of Jawaharlal Nehru and a firm follower of Mahatma Gandhi. The Sucheta Kripalani-led government stayed in power till 1967, during which time she managed to stem the downward slide that the Uttar Pradesh economy had been on for a while. During her tenure, state employees went on a hunger strike, demanding a pay hike. But Chief Minister Kripalani refused, and the strike fizzled out after 62 days when the agitators agreed to compromise with the government. In 1967, when the votes were counted after the 4th assembly elections of Uttar Pradesh, it was found that the Congress tally had, for the first time, fallen below the majority mark. With 199 seats in a 425 size assembly. This was the first indication that the era of undisputed Congress dominance in UP was coming to an end. The Congress had dominated state politics from before independence and had convincingly and overwhelmingly filled up the treasury benches in 1952 when the first UP assembly was constituted. The dominance finally over in 1967, Jat leader Chaudhry Charan Singh made his bid for government. Charan Singh had broken away from the Congress to form his Bharatiya Kranti Dal, BKD, and he was backed by political forces that ranged from the right to the left. In April 1967, Charan Singh was sworn in as Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh at the head of the Samyukta Vidhayak Dal, SVD, a coalition which had the CPIM on the left and the Bharatiya Jan Sangh on the right, along with socialist parties like the Republican Party of India, Swatantra Party and Praja Socialist Party, as well as 22 other independents to make up the numbers backing Charan Singh up. But the coalition did not last. The intrinsic ideological discrepancies between coalition partners pulled it apart. The first non-Congress Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh was forced to resign, and he had to call for dissolution of the House in February 1968. A year of central rule was followed by elections in 1969. Charan Singh's BKD this time won 98 seats. The Jana Sangh got 49. But it was the Congress which managed to form the government, having won 211 seats in the 425-member House. Veteran leader Chandrabhanu Gupta became Chief Minister. It was his second stint, and once again, he did not last long in the Chief Minister's post. This time, not because of what was happening in Uttar Pradesh, but because of what took place at the Congress Party headquarters in faraway Delhi. On 12th of November 1969, the Congress Party President S. Nijlingappa expelled Prime Minister Indira Gandhi from the party for fostering a cult of personality. And what that meant was that the party split between the old guard-led Congress O and Indira Gandhi's Congress R. This also meant that in faraway Lucknow, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh no longer enjoyed majority and had to resign. Charan Singh returned as Chief Minister in February 1970, this time with the help of Indira Gandhi's Congress R. But this coalition too lasted a bare few months, and the state was again put under President's rule. In the next 7 years, Uttar Pradesh saw 3 more stints of President's rule and 4 Chief Ministers come and go, with no government or party staying in power for a full tenure. In fact, till Mayawati's last stint as Chief Minister, from 2007 to 2012, no other Chief Minister before her had ever completed a full term of office in the state. But even as Mayawati in 2012 completed her full term, she had already begun to lose her connect with the Uttar Pradesh voter. This was because Chief Minister Mayawati lived behind a gated complex, her residence barricaded from public view by a huge security blanket. Security around her and at her official residence was like an iron curtain that put her out of reach of her support base. There were also accusations of corruption. The Chief Minister's lavish lifestyle and affinity for expensive jewelry began to jar. So at the end of 4 years and 307 days in office, when elections were announced for the 16th Assembly of Uttar Pradesh, the people voted their displeasure. So who would the voters of Uttar Pradesh want as the next Chief Minister, as the 20th Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh? That was the question. In 2008, a young UP politician first made his mark as a popular leader. He led the statewide student protests against the Mayawati regime. By 2011, Akhilesh Yadav, the son of Mulayam Singh Yadav, had become a well-known face who was trying to resurrect the image of the party that his father had founded.
Akhilesh, as a dynamic leader of my party, gave impetus to all this anger of the public against BSP.
अखिलेश यादव जी को मैं जो है मुबारकबाद दूंगा कि उन्होंने एक नई शक्ल समाजवादी पार्टी को दी है.
Ahead of the 2012 Assembly election campaign, the Samajwadi Party looked lumbered with an aging leadership. The legacy of having taken several anti-modern positions like rejecting computers, eradicating English, and an aversion to machines. Akhilesh began working overtime to change the image of the party, down to even riding the latest model of bicycles. Free laptops to students were promised in the manifesto and computers introduced at the party office, despite old-timers scoffing in disgust. Professionals, instead of muscle men, were given tickets. The symbols of Gunda Raj were removed.
जहाँ तक साइकिल का सवाल है, साइकिल तो पंचर होगी ठीक हो जाएगी, चेन टूटेगी तो ठीक हो जाएगी, आजा चेन नहीं डलवा लेंगे, ट्यूब नया डलवा लेंगे। और मान लो हाथी अभी तो कम पागल है और ज्यादा पागल हो गया तो बताओ क्या होगा।
Termed the party's biggest win in 27 years, Akhilesh Yadav was credited with steering the party to victory. The SP won 224 of the 403 seats in the assembly, leaving Mayawati's Bahujan Samaj Party with only 80 seats. While party seniors wanted Mulayam to don the CM's hat, he made it clear that he wanted Akhilesh in the seat. At 38, Akhilesh Yadav became the youngest Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh.
मैं अखिलेश यादव ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूँ कि मैं विधि द्वारा स्थापित भारत के संविधान के प्रति सच्ची श्रद्धा और निष्ठा रखूंगा।
Soon after taking oath, Akhilesh undertook a major shake-up of the bureaucracy, who ruled the roost in the Mayawati government. Making a difference in style of governance, he revived the practice of Janta Darshan, to listen to the grievances of the public at his official residence in Lucknow, an area that had been out of bounds for the common man during Mayawati's days. Despite these measures, law and order remained his biggest concern. Hooliganism by members of Akhilesh's party ran rampant. Vulnerable sections like lower castes, religious minorities and women continued to feel insecure. And in 2014, the SP was routed in the Lok Sabha polls in the face of a resurgent Bharatiya Janata Party propelled by the Modi wave. It could win only 5 of the state's 80 Lok Sabha seats against the BJP's 71. Despite all his efforts, in 2017 the Samajwadi Party in Uttar Pradesh seemed even more unruly, faction-ridden and directionless than when Akhilesh had taken over. And while he became only the second Chief Minister of the state to have completed a full term, the voters decided that it was time that the state went saffron in governance.
2/3 बहुमत से सरकार बनाएंगे, नरेंद्र मोदी के हाथ मजबूत करेंगे, कमल फूल के निशान पर बटन दबाएंगे।
The BJP won big in 2017. From mere 47 seats in the 16th Assembly, it shot up to 312 in the 17th Assembly. The SP, which had been in power with 224, got the exact number that the BJP had before, 47. 47 was also the number of seats that the Congress had been reduced to in the 7th Uttar Pradesh Assembly, constituted in 1977. The elections for the 7th UP Assembly were held in the backdrop of the Congress having been routed in the general elections of 1977, when the electorate gave the thumbs down to Indira Gandhi for having foisted a period of emergency on India. The new Janata Party Prime Minister dismissed the Congress government in Uttar Pradesh, and after 54 days of President's rule, elections took place to install a legitimate government in Lucknow. The anti-Congress sentiment held, and the Congress were reduced to 47 seats in an assembly of 425 strength. And riding the people's discontent to victory was the Janata Party, which, having won the centre, also came to power in Lucknow with 352 of the 425 seats. But even in 1977, like it was to happen 40 years later in 2017, there was confusion and suspense over who would be the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh.